Welcome to Brand Rescue, a public relations podcast where we dig into the truth about what it's actually like to work in PR. I'm Whitney Lee. I ditched my fancy corporate job to freelance in small town USA and ended up building an international PR agency. On this show, we skip all the BS and sugarcoating and get into the conversations our industry should be having. It's all real talk, and we love a hot take. Glad you're here. Let's get to it. Hey, friends. Thanks for tuning in and welcome back. Today's episode is actually not going to talk a lot about travel. We're actually going to talk about franchises and brands that have multiple location because here's what's inspiring this episode. Is the fact that we've been doing so much franchise work lately. I mean, throughout the years, in the past 13 years, I've definitely worked with some franchises and we've worked on both sides of the coin, right? Like sometimes it is the brand hiring us, and sometimes it is an actual franchisee hiring us, which has been really helpful. And also, you know, almost everyone on our team has worked in either a franchise or a multi-location type of establishment. Now that could be hospitality based, or we're also like, we've worked with med spas and now we're talking to a Pilates brand. Like there's a lot of different types of franchises that we've dealt with. Gosh, some of the brands we've worked with: Tropical Smoothie, Island Wing Company, Bruce Chris. So I think what this whole episode will kind of be around is like, why franchising sounds so attractive, right? Somebody builds a brand and everybody falls in love with it. And then their first thought, most restaurant owners, is like, we should turn this into a franchise. And you're like, yeah, that sounds like such a good idea. But the whole point of this episode is to say growing an establishment, how about that? Whether that's a Pilates brand or a med spa or a restaurant, growing an establishment is different than growing a brand of franchises. Okay. Even though you're, maybe you have a Pilates studio and you actually get kind of popular and you open up 3 or 4 in your market or 5 or 6, you're a multi-location brand. That is different than a franchise brand, right? Obviously, franchise is when someone else buys a location, a territory, um, to use your brand and establish a business, right? So even growing a multi-location brand is different than growing a franchise brand. And honestly, we really love this kind of work. And you'll kind of understand as we get more into the episode, but franchises have their own strategy, their own challenges. And what we usually see is someone is really good at something, right? Whether it's making pancakes or leading Pilates or whatever, they become really well known and their brand takes off and they pop up a second or third location in their same area, a nearby city, like very, very, like, in the same neck of the woods necessarily. And then they get a little momentum and they're like, oh, I could add on a third one, a fourth one, and it becomes well known in one area. You become a big fish in a little pond. And then that's when you're kind of at this point when you have the opportunity to franchise. And it sounds all good and dandy until a lot of people start getting into it. And then they're like, oh my God, this is so much more than I realized. And also, if you own the brand, you wear such a different hat that you're like, oh, this is uncharted territory. You just thought you were going to collect a fee from these people. Like, okay, you pay me the fee, and every month you give me a percentage of sales, and you go on your merry way. And quickly people figure out, like, oh my God, there's so much more to it. And there's also a completely different skill set that is required to build a franchise. Now, yes, franchises can be incredibly profitable if you know what you're doing, and again, a lot of times people their original concept takes off because they are an excellent doer, right? They are excellent at running a restaurant. They are excellent at making delicious food. They are excellent at leading Pilates classes. But just because you're excellent at doing doesn't mean you're excellent at leading. And when you get into the franchise space, they're paying you a fee, but there's also an exchange that needs to happen. And that's where people actually, if y'all have noticed, there's a lot of brands out there that are actually going out and buying back all their franchises because they're like, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to just go straight to being a corporate brand that has a ton of locations because the franchisee angle throws in such a curveball. So think of this, and let's just like talk this out. And then it makes a lot more sense once sometimes these brands call us and I start verbalizing all this and they're like, oh my God, yes, this is exactly what's happening to us. How do you know this? And I'm like, I know this because this happens to every brand, and you've got to get a direction on it. So people start getting someone to buy a franchise, and when someone buys a franchise, they are basically buying a business in a bag. Okay, for anybody who's a millennial, remember bed in a bag, or maybe it was called bedding in a bag, where it was those big square plastic like zip up bags that had like your comforter, your flat sheet, your fitted sheet, two pillowcases, bed in a bag, everything together. So these franchisees are trying to buy a bed in a bag, right? A business in a bag where everything they need is already put together. And that's part of what their fee is for, right? They're paying you, usually there's some kind of buy-in fee, like, I don't know, they range anywhere from I've seen 25,000 to 150,000, you pay an initial flat fee just to get in the ball game, and then after that you pay a percentage of, your monthly sales. So they're trying to buy a business in a bag, and a lot of times when founders are just starting off and just getting, selling franchises to people, the the brand owner sells the recipes, the concept, and all that. And the one piece that is never handled is the marketing. It's the one piece. And the person buying the franchise is like, I if I'm paying you a monthly fee for marketing and stuff, like you need to be handling that, And then the restaurant owner's like, and they don't really know where to go with it. So it's like and especially if this franchisee bought in a completely different market from you. Some restaurant owners, sorry, I keep going back to restaurants because we're so hospitality based, but I guess this really could apply for anybody. Some brand owners are really good at marketing and they get it. But what happens is they start to get their market. They get their audience because usually they've lived in the city and operated in the city that city for so long that they know the trend. They know the seasonality of the city. They know their customer. They know what's happening around town. They know that market so well, and they become good marketers because of their familiarity. Then you get in a whole different ball game when they buy this franchise. It's in another city, and the owner's like, "Oh, well, you just do this," and you're like, "Well, that doesn't work in that city. It's a totally different city." You know, we've worked with franchises that were in the panhandle of Florida, and then they started dabbling in Central and South Florida. Well, newsflash, my friends, the peak season for the panhandle of Florida is summertime. The rest of Florida is the exact opposite. Summer is their slowest season and winter is their peak season. So there's a totally different strategy, right? So that's where a lot of business owners go sideways. And it always seems to be the headache or the biggest headache for both the brand owner and the franchisee always becomes the marketing. Always. And I get it because, again, they got into this because they're an excellent I don't know, esthetician, they're an excellent Pilates instructor, they are an excellent chef or whatever it is. They got into it because they're good at that, not because they're good at marketing. So this is why most brands either A, never really turn into franchises. They maybe sell a couple and then it becomes a headache and they're like, they're jaded and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. These franchisees are such a pain in my butt and they back away from it, or they never even get to that point because people won't buy the franchise if they don't see a marketing plan, you know? And we actually have had that happen too as well, like where, you know, the brand is solid, the brand is ready, they have all of the logistical pieces in place to become a franchise and nobody will buy the franchise. And they're left scratching their head of like, well, why is nobody buying it? And it's because there's no marketing. There's no marketing plan. You cannot just open a studio, a restaurant, a whatever, and expect people to show up on your doorstep. Even like for a restaurant, a lot of people think, well, if we do good food, like word of mouth. And I'm like, yo, okay, 1995 is over. There's this thing called the internet. Like you've got to put yourself out there because there's so much competition, and this is where the biggest battle is. The franchisee is looking at the founder saying, or the brand and saying, you need to be marketing me. And the brand is looking at the franchisee like, you're you need to get more business, like, because they make a percentage off of it. Like, you should be doing 2 to $3 million at your store and and so there's this push and pull. And literally all of this could be solved if you just get a marketing plan in place, you know, or we see, franchisees don't have enough support and so they start going rogue they don't have enough marketing support, so they start going rogue. They're, like, posting random stuff on their social media, they're, like, adding their own menu items, they're, like, going live on from Instagram, like, just, like, making the brand look like a hot mess, like they're going rogue, and it's because and I can't blame them because they're trying to generate sales, right? And they don't know how to, so they're just throwing spaghetti at a wall, and then the brand is like, "Oh my god, like, you're humiliating us, like, you are basically destroying our brand," but at the same time, they weren't helping them with marketing, So I see it, and I have, honestly, like, our agency has lived it from both sides of the coin of, like, this push and pull between the brand and the franchisee, and again, the whole answer is you gotta have a solid marketing team in place because that'll also give a lot of consistency. Where some of the inconsistencies come in, like I just mentioned, is when these franchisees start freaking going rogue because they wanna generate sales, and, then you're not being consistent with the brand. Then the customer comes in and they see a customer comes into a franchise because they want the same experience that they get every time they go to that franchise. You know, I think when people walk into a mom and pop, they realize like, hey, there's only like one or two of these. So like, that they do things a little different at every location. Okay, people are maybe a little more, open to that, but when they go into a franchise, they wanna know that they're getting the same thing that it's like they want that security of knowing, "I'm gonna get the same smoothie I always get at every Smoothie King, and it's gonna be amazing." It always freaking astonishes me when I look, like, living in Destin, Florida for, like, I don't know, 16 years or something. We had all of these amazing locally owned restaurants, but you would have people freaking lined up out the door to go to Bubba Gump Shrimp. And I'm like, "What?" And you know what it is? It's like I really sincerely think those people, number 1, they probably don't have that franchise in the city where they live year round, like their hometown. And so they're like, "Oh, well, I've never tried one of these. I'll try it." So it's something new for them. Or they want that. They're like one of those people that's like the safe choice person where they're like, I don't want to try a new restaurant because I know that I'm going to get the whatever shrimp at Bubba Gump, and I love that. So it's like they want that guarantee of, I know I'm gonna get something I love. And when you let your franchisees go freaking rogue, then that's when the customer comes in, they don't have the same experience, and they're frustrated, and then you have literally defeated the entire purpose of having a franchise, you know? And a lot of brands are afraid because they're like, no, I can't charge too much money for marketing because the franchisees will push back. And you know what's funny is I have seen the opposite. Finally, when we told some of these franchisees, like, hey, we're going to increase your fee, but here are all the things we're going to be doing for you. We're going to be running your Google ads, all your meta ads. We're going to consolidate all social media. So that'll be managed for you. We're going to coordinate influencers for you. The relief that these franchisees, that they were not tripping about spending extra money. They were happy that all of that was taken off their plate because again, they got into this because they wanted to own a restaurant or a Pilates studio. They didn't buy into this concept because they want to become excellent marketers, you know? They bought into a business in a bag, and so put the freaking marketing inside the bag. Put it all in there so people don't have to worry and charge them more for it. That's what they want. They are that if they wanted to start their own freaking restaurant from the ground up and like figure out a menu and figure out marketing and figure out what color to paint the walls and what types of tables to order and la di da, they would have started their own restaurant, you know? That's why they're buying this concept from you is because they want it done for them and they want to buy an operation that's ready to go. So that's my take, y'all. That's why I think a lot of really successful brands that actually have so much potential can never turn into franchises, or they have failed at turning into franchises is because they can't wrap their heads around the importance of having a solid plan for marketing and supporting each franchise through the marketing. Because again, people who buy these franchises are operations people. Whether it's Pilates or a hair salon or a restaurant, they are operations people usually, and they're looking at numbers and they don't want to figure out the nitty gritty. They want to buy the bed and the bag. So we love franchise work and we're having so much fun with this, helping people open up locations all over the US. And so yeah, that's actually what uh a lot of our work will be coming down the pike really soon, and we're excited about it. You know, you get to focus on one brand, but then pop it up in all these different markets. For us, that is really, really exciting. So anyway, would love your feedback, or if you know somebody who owns a really amazing business or a brand that they're dabbling with the idea of like adding more locations, or they're dabbling with the idea of starting a franchise. I actually did 2 episodes. God, it's been like a year or 2 ago. I don't know. They're pretty far back. I did a couple episodes about, like, if you wanna start a franchise, and then I think I did a part 2 that was, like, on the opposite side, like if you want to buy a franchise. So those 2 episodes may be helpful, or you can totally share this episode with them. And I think it'll give them a lot of insight. So, as always, you guys can connect with me. I love hearing back from y'all. And let me know what you want me to talk about next. I always enjoy answering your questions and making this relevant for y'all. So, as always, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode. That's it for today. If something in this episode landed for you, share it, screenshot it, and send it to someone in the industry who needs to hear it. And come connect with me personally on Instagram at @TheWhitneyLee, or you can find me on LinkedIn. See you next week.